Namaskar. 20th November 2020. My father Chidananda Dasgupta's 99th birthday. He would have been 99 years old had he been alive today. Next year will be his centenary year, 20th November 2021. He would have been 100 years old. So this year, this birthday marks the beginning of his centenary celebrations. Chidananda Dasgupta was somebody who started the Film Society movement, who took film criticism to heights never seen in India before. He was also the founder president of Fipresci, who have arranged to celebrate his birthday and to commemorate him by having a contest on film criticism, and the winner will get the Chidananda Dasgupta Memorial Award. Thank you so much, organizers of Fipresci, for doing this, and thank you Aparna Vasudev, who will be delivering the Chidananda Dasgupta Memorial Lecture. Aparna Vasudev is an old family friend. I like to think that she's as much a friend of mine as she was of my parents. In fact, she will be talking, I suppose, of all his achievements as a film critic and a filmmaker, screenwriter, writings on cinema and so on. So I will limit my my talk of remembering Chidananda Dasgupta to remembering my father, what kind of a father he was. What kind of a father he was is very it cannot be separated from what kind of a man he was. Once he had said, and I'm fond of quoting this story, at a premiere of one of my films, he had been asked to talk. He had been asked on the stage, asked to come up on stage and talk, and all he had said was, "I have nothing to do with the film. I'm simply the producer of the director." But anyone who knew my father knew that he had this facility for a turn of a phrase and a great sense of humor, which was intact till the very end. But even though this particular phrase, even though spoken in jest, was actually very true, and not only in the biological sense. If I didn't have Chidananda Dasgupta for a father, I don't think I would have been a filmmaker today. For one thing, not only for me, for the whole of Bengal and Calcutta and India actually, he brought an awareness of cinema as a subject to be studied. We used to go to see films with my parents for Film Society shows and so on. We had a veranda in our house in Palm Avenue, a large veranda where there was an 8mm projector. And we used to, what child of 11 or 12 has the pleasure or the privilege of watching Passion of Joan of Arc or Ivan the Terrible at that age on an 8mm projector, and have a father later on who explains and who discusses the film with her. This was something that my father did. And I'm always amazed at the number of friends my father had all over the world. He was truly a man of whom it could be said that the world was his oyster. Because I have met many people in other countries who have come up to me and said, "Are you Chidananda Dasgupta's daughter?" And I've always proudly said yes. And they have said, "Oh, we met him at such and such a time, and he was so wonderful, and he inspired me to write, or he inspired me to make films," or something like that. And he seems to have been an inspiration for many people, including his daughter, Aparna. I say that I couldn't have been a director if it hadn't been for my father. Now, why am I saying that? What is film direction? It's not something that can be learned. You can learn the mechanics of it. You can learn the technicalities, but vision, that nobody can teach you. Nobody. That you have to glean from life itself, from exposure, from, soaking in life's experiences like a sponge is what finally gives you your vision of life, of the world. My father was truly a global citizen, and a true blue global citizen. And the freedom of spirit that belongs to such a person is what he tried to impart to us, his children. I don't know how far he succeeded in imparting that, but I know that he succeeded in becoming much more than a father to me. He was a friend, a mentor, a fellow traveler, fellow adventurer, a comrade with whom I could discuss anything under the sun, and also, I would say, a co-activist in the cause of good cinema, because both of us were very, very passionate about good cinema. One of the things that we did, I remember when they were in Shantiniketan, my parents, where they built their home with much love and hope, this home called Ashavari. There we used to go for holidays, and we would have, my father had a DVD player, and we used to bring our DVDs, and all of us would have our own little film festival at home. I mean, for instance, we would be watching Antonioni. One time we would be just watching Antonioni, like a retrospective of Antonioni's or a retrospective of Bergman's. These are the things that we continue to do and enjoy, and that is what I miss so much now that he's not here. How did my father become all this? A person who is so such a wonderful critic, such a person so aware of cinema as a text to be studied. I mean, he's written so many essays, so many articles, so many books. His book on Satyajit Ray is something that is completely, it's seminal. I mean, I had to once do a memorial lecture on Ray's birthday for the Ray Society, and I found it impossible to say anything that was new, because whatever I wanted to say, my father had already said it before. So he was a very perceptive person with a great sense of history and putting, the ability to put things into context, into the context of history and sociology. So he was a very serious intellectual, a scholar. His origins were very humble. He was the son of Monmathanath Dasgupta, my grandfather, who was a first-generation Brahmo and a Brahmo preacher at that. So, in early childhood, they were very, very poor and, traveling from one place to another. But finally, I think my grandfather settled in Hazaribagh, and there he was the Brahmo preacher. He was the Acharya over there. There was the Brahmo Samaj. And he was a Gandhian. I still remember that my grandfather used to have a charka on which he used to weave thread, and out of that thread, cloth was made. And my father, as a child of, 10 or 11, had to take the bundles of cloth or the bundles of thread and go to the hart, the bazaar, and sell the stuff, and then come back and give the accounts to my grandfather, who was very strict. And he then went to school. Now, when he went to school once, he told me, he spoke beautiful English, by the way, my father. And even his pronunciation was so wonderful. And he used to teach me when I was a child how to pronounce English words. I asked him once, where did you learn? And he said that as a child, when he was in school, and a British inspector of schools had come. And, he found that this British person, was talking very differently from the rest of the people, the Indians around him. And he went up to the inspector, even as a child at that age, and he asked him, how come you are pronouncing the words like this, and how do I learn the correct English pronunciation? And this gentleman showed him a dictionary and showed him how to read the dictionary, how to read where the accent should be, etc., etc. And my father really, after that, taught himself English, just as he taught himself French. He was very sort of persistent and resilient in that sense. My grandfather was a homeopathic practitioner. As I said, he was a Brahmo missionary. He was Gandhian. He had great religious fervor, combined with a lot of moral courage. I mean, he had started a cooperative for sweepers in order to save them from the clutches of the Kabuliwalas, the men from Kabul, from whom they used to borrow money and, get completely broke and, get into a cycle of interest. My father inherited much of that from him, but what, my grandfather's religiosity in my father turned into a certain spirituality which was tempered by agnosticism. My father had a very inquiring mind and a very liberal, open-minded person. So, I have to tell you a little story here that my father was, along with my uncle, a freedom fighter. At that age, I think at that time, most people were. And he was going to college in Patna. And of course, when he was caught, they said, we will rusticate him. And they came and talked to my grandfather saying, we don't want to rusticate him because he's a very good student, but we will have to rusticate him. And, unless he signs a bond saying he's never going to engage in this kind of thing again. And then my grandfather is supposed to have said, if he does sign that bond, I will turn him out of the house. So he was very, very strong. My grandfather was a man of great moral strength. And that has also translated into a sort of intellectual honesty and moral backbone in my father's case. There was a genuine disregard of material comforts and luxuries and so on. Of course, you needed money. Everyone needs money. But, branded stuff and luxury items, all of that was considered, they didn't even know about it. They didn't care about it. They had genuine indifference to it all their lives. And they had a word called plain living and high thinking, which they really followed. This exposure to cinema from a very early age, I will compare to children in a musician's home. They pick up the basics of the ragas. They pick up the sargam very, very fast, without even knowing it, because they're constantly exposed to it. Now, because we were constantly exposed to world cinema, I think that helped develop a taste in cinema, helped develop an eye for good cinema. And of course, that is what helps you become a director. So I think that was a very, very important thing that my father gave to me. Also, my parents, both of them, really lived a life in the arts. I mean, we were exposed to liberal thought, we were exposed to art in all kinds of forms, we were taken to dance recitals of Shanta Rao doing Mohiniyattam and Bharatanatyam. We were taken to music conferences where we heard, Amir Khan singing. We were taken to painting exhibitions. They sat with us lots of times, reading poetry to us from both Bengali and English poets, Jibanananda Das for one, Rabindranath for another. Then Swinburne, I remember my father reading Swinburne, my mother sitting next to him, and I didn't understand a word. They were reading from Atalanta's Race, and I didn't understand one word. But I did understand the music of the language. I did fall in love with the cadence of the language. And I remember the lines still. And time remembered is grief forgotten. And I understood it all wrong, because I thought it was, and time reminder has forgotten. I thought it was somebody was supposed to remind somebody else of the time and they forgot, which is absolutely ridiculous and makes Swinburne sound ludicrous. But that didn't matter, because the sound of the words, the musicality of the language, that got conveyed. And this is something that they did. They never tried to explain everything, they didn't, for instance, we went to see a lot of films that we didn't understand. And it was, for instance, Hiroshima Mon Amour, I saw at an age when I didn't understand it at all. But it didn't matter. It was something that, like poetry, that kind of grabbed you, that made you, engaged you. And that was very, very important. I think that is what they exposed us to. I spent my summer holidays poring over my father's books on art, so much so that at one time I became quite an expert on the French Impressionists. I could tell one painter from another just by looking at painting, the styles being different. So this I think these kind of experiences is what helped me become a filmmaker. And then my father would I was very, very hurt because he didn't read the script of 36 Chaurangi Lane, even though I'd asked him to. I mean, Manikaka, that is Shutrajit Rai, did, but Baba didn't. And I believe my sister Anuradha and my father, they went to see it at a show in Delhi, at a private screening in Delhi, and they were very, very worried. My father was very worried. What has, his daughter gone and done? And I believe my sister says that he was very relieved when he saw the film, and he was very proud, I'm happy to say. There are often times that I discussed my films with my father. For instance, when I made Juganto, I told him the story, and then he said, can't something apocalyptic happen at the end, like the sea catching fire? And I said, yes, of course. And this is what I introduced into the film. But he would just say that much. He wouldn't go into elaborate details. He would just make a suggestion. For instance, in 15 Park Avenue, he said, how about Meethi, the schizophrenic girl? How about her, doesn't she react to the politics around her? Maybe she interprets it wrongly, but doesn't she react to it? And I said, of course, that is something very interesting that I could weave into the story, because it was about different kinds of realities, this schizophrenic girl's reality, our realities. So all these different realities, and which reality is actually more real. So that was what the film was about. And this suggestion really, really helped. It was all very valuable to me. We used to listen to music together, for instance, my father, mother, I, my sister, and we loved both Indian classical and Western classical music. And Baba loved it till the very end. I mean, the time I went away to America, leaving him, and, he died while I was away, he had asked me, he used to constantly listen to music, and he used to like me to come and sit with him when he listened to music. Often I would say, Baba, shall I put on a CD for you? He would say, no, I'll wait for you when you have the time. We'd listen to it together. And he said, I said, what shall I bring you? I know you like dates, and I know you like cheese and wine, so I'll get all that for you. But what else would you like me to bring for you? He said, music. So I said, what kind of music? You have everything. I mean, you have all of Mozart, all of Beethoven. What do you want? So he said, European. He was beginning to forget things. He said, European. I said, European what? European, German what? He said, no, further north. So I said, further north, what are you talking about? Norway, Finland? Yes. Finland. So I said, Finlandia. Sibelius. He said, yes. And the day that my husband Kolan and I went out to buy Sibelius's Finlandia for him, in the car, we got the news that he had passed away. So I couldn't get him. I couldn't listen to Finlandia along with him. And that was very sad. But I have to say that you don't get critics, film critics, or screen, people writing about films like my father anymore. Nowadays, film criticism is really more about the critic himself or herself, and they're trying to, demonstrate how much they know and how much they've read and so on and so forth. Whereas in my father's case, he was the gentlest of critics. He was always trying to interpret the filmmaker, and he was always trying to understand the filmmaker, understand what the filmmaker was trying to say, rather than destroy the filmmaker with criticism. His was always constructive criticism, and I think it's time that one studied his essays and his articles and read his books to understand how one should be writing about cinema. Thank you, Baba, for wonderful childhood and youth, where you inculcated the love of cinema in me. Thank you.